All right, let's set the scene. It's 1943. World War II is in full swing. And behind the scenes, engineers are messing with this strange, new flying machine. It's clunky, it's unreliable, and honestly, it's pretty flawed. But deep in the jungles of Burma, it's about to get a desperate call to action. A call that's going to change aviation forever. So that was the official opinion on the U.S. Army's brand new helicopter. Yeah, not exactly a 5-star review, is it? The guys who were actually building them knew how fragile they were, especially in the heat. They were basically saying, hey, good luck out there, and try not to have this thing just disintegrate on you. This really sets the stage for one of the most unbelievable gambles of the entire war. So you have to wonder, how in the world did this shaky, untested piece of tech end up on the front lines of a secret war? Well, it all started with a very specific and very, very difficult problem. Okay, so the Burma campaign was just a logistical nightmare. I mean, we're talking about thick, mountainous jungle, there are no roads, no airfields, and you've got an enemy that's dug in deep. Your typical army just can't function in a place like this. The Allies desperately needed a new way to get in, to fight, and, just as importantly, to get back out. And this is where General Hap Arnold, the head of the Army Air Forces, comes in. He had this radical idea for a totally new kind of unit, a group that could do it all. They could fly troops in, act as their own air support, like flying artillery, and pull out anyone who got wounded. He called them the Air Commandos. And for a wild idea like this, he needed some equally unconventional leaders. And boy, did he find them in John Allison and Phil Cochrane. These two could not have been more different. Allison was your classic, decorated ace, cool, calm, a real diplomat. Cochrane, on the other hand, well, he was described as a kind of electrical disturbance in human form, a total firebrand who was actually the real-life inspiration for a character in the super popular comic strip Terry and the Pirates. So you take these two absolute mavericks and you tell them to build this impossible unit from the ground up. Now, Allison and Cochrane needed a whole air force, fighters, gliders, the works. But Allison, he had his eye on one very particular machine, something nobody had even dreamed of using in combat before. And this is it, the Sikorsky YR-4B. And you know what? Shoebox with windows is a perfect description. This thing was not an intimidating machine of war. It was this fragile-looking mess of steel tubes that were literally just covered in fabric. Honestly, it looked more like a garage science experiment than something you'd fly into battle. And this is where it gets really crazy. Just look at how primitive this thing was. The main rotor blades, they weren't metal. They were literally pieces of wood glued together. The engineers were terrified they'd just peel apart in the jungle humidity. Its engine had less horsepower than a lot of family cars on the road today, and its range was a measly 100 miles. By any logical measure, this machine was absolutely not ready for war. So why on earth would you push it into service? The answer lies with a man at the top. General Arnold's whole philosophy was pretty simple: innovate, take risks, and win the war. He didn't care about red tape or long, drawn-out testing. He saw something that might give his guys an edge, and he told them to go for it. And that attitude is exactly how these rickety helicopters got packed up and shipped off to India. But getting the green light from a general is one thing. Actually getting these machines into the jungle and flying them, well, that turned out to be a whole other challenge, and it was almost a complete disaster. The mission just seemed cursed from the get-go. They send 6 helicopters, the first one gets destroyed in a plane crash before it even gets there, then the second one shows up, but its teal rotor was put on a different plane that flew somewhere else. It took them 2 months just to track down the missing part, mainly because the people who got the crate had no idea what this weird metal thing was. And even when they finally got one in the air, the challenges were just unbelievable. To get 150 miles behind enemy lines, which is where they needed to be, the pilots had to load the passenger seat up with cans of fuel, fly about halfway, find any clearing, land, and then refuel the thing by hand. Every single flight was an absolute high-wire act. And get this part sounds like it's straight out of a movie. Whenever a helicopter landed, local Burmese villagers who had never seen anything like it would naturally come running to check it out. The commandos were worried this would attract Japanese patrols, so they had P-51 Mustang fighters fly low and fire their machine guns into the dirt in front of the villagers just to scare them away. Can you even imagine that scene? It's just wild. For a while, the helicopters didn't do much. They were just there. But then, on April 21st, 1944, a desperate call came over the radio. The Eggbeater, as the pilots had nicknamed it, was about to face its ultimate test. Here's what happened. An American observation plane carrying 3 wounded British soldiers went down, and it went down deep, 150 miles behind enemy lines. All 4 men survived the crash, but now they were stranded in the middle of the jungle with Japanese patrols getting closer. And that was the nightmare scenario. Rescuers could spot them from the air, but there was nowhere to land a plane, not even a small, flat field. A regular rescue was impossible. These men were completely cut off. So, what do? The call went out to Lieutenant Carter Harmon, one of the only helicopter pilots around. And his mission plan was, well, it was breathtakingly insane. First, he had to fly his YR-4B over 600 miles and cross a mountain range just to get to a forward airstrip. Then, because the helicopter could only carry 1 extra person, he would have to make 4 separate trips into that tiny clearing, picking up 1 man at a time and flying him to a nearby sandbar where a bigger plane could land and get them. And he made it. When the downed American pilot, a guy named Ed Halad of SAC, saw this bizarre contraption slowly descending out of the sky, he couldn't believe it. He'd probably never even seen a helicopter before, but he knew in that instant it was his only way out. Harmon wrote in his report that the guy just went crazy with relief. Harmon successfully flew the first 2 wounded men to the sandbar. But as he landed after that second trip, the helicopter's little engine, which had been pushed way past its limits in the jungle heat, just gave out. It overheated and died. And just like that, Harmon was stranded too, spending a terrifying night all alone on that sandbar, a sitting duck. The next morning, miraculously, the cooled-down engines started back up. Harmon flew back into the clearing, picked up the 3rd soldier, and returned for the pilot Haladovchak. But as he was coming into land, he saw soldiers with rifles bursting out of the trees. Thinking they were Japanese, he grabbed Haladovchak and took off as fast as that little chopper could go. It was only later he found out they were friendly British troops who had hiked in to help. It was just this chaotic, dramatic end to an absolutely historic flight. So, over the course of just 2 days, Carter Harmon and his fragile Eggbeater had done the impossible. And the ripple effect from that one single mission was immediate, and it was massive. This rescue wasn't just a lucky fluke. After Harmon's incredible success, the Air Commandos went on to fly 20 more helicopter rescues before their machines literally just wore out and fell apart. They had proven the concept beyond any shadow of a doubt. So here's the bottom line. Here's why this matters so much. That one incredibly dangerous mission was the birth of a revolution. It was the world's first combat helicopter rescue. It took a piece of technology everyone thought was a useless toy and proved its worth. It paved the way for everything from the MASH units in Korea to the special operations forces we have today. The DNA of every modern air rescue, it starts right there, in that jungle clearing in Burma. It's an incredible story, right? It shows how one single moment of crisis can prove the value of a radical, unproven idea. And it really makes you wonder, what technologies are out there right now, today, that we all think are flawed or impractical, just waiting for their own Burma moment to step up and change the world?